So hello everyone, warm welcome to everyone present on the call, and thanks a lot for all of your guys' time. This initiative, the Detox with Deep Talks, is taken by Blossoms, in which we aim to connect successful entrepreneurs, professionals and experts with aspiring entrepreneurs, with students, and young professionals, so that we can learn about their success stories. We can learn about their failures, their past experiences. Because in this time of social media, where we are posting our happy moments, we are posting our success stories, our achievements, we have, like, in some sort, we have forgotten to embrace our failures, learn from our mistakes. So this initiative is especially for the younger generation, to make the to change the mindset that failure is not an opposite of success, but it is a part of success, right? So we have a very special guest with us, Mr. Tanmai. So a very warm welcome to you, sir. Thanks a lot for your time. We are honored to have you here.
Pleasure.
Yeah. So without any further ado, let's start the session.
Mm-hmm.
I am Siddharth, and
Yep.
with me is Sarvesh, and we'll be moderating today's session.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep. So just to begin the session, I have a brief introduction for Mr. Tanmai Sharma. Mr. Tanmai is the CEO and founder of Canopy Private Limited, which is essentially a very big data analytics and a data visualization platform. And before that, he was working at Deutsche Bank for about 15 years in all of the elite offices in Singapore, Hong Kong, New York, Mumbai. And he graduated from IIM Ahmedabad way back in 1992, which was about 10 years before all of us were even born. So I think today having you is a matter of great pride and honor for all of us, because the set of experiences that you have would add value to all our lives. And so thank you very much for taking time out of a busy Tuesday evening to join us. I think my first question to you would be that we would love to know more about you, your journey so far, uh, how you got into Canopy, and what is your mindset that has taken you so far in life.
So I didn't start out to be an entrepreneur. In fact, I think I'm the first in my whole family, or one of the few. My family is full of people who are academicians and worked in government jobs and teachers and that kind of stuff. So I definitely did not start out wanting to be an entrepreneur. I in fact became a banker by accident. So, and that seems to be the case. In fact, pretty much every banker has become a banker by accident. Nobody sort of, when you ask a little kid in grade 2 saying, what do you want to be when you grow up? I don't think anybody says banker. People say astronaut and pilot and firefighter, and, things like that. So, so to an extent, you kind of went with the flow. But there were 3-4 things that I always kind of was mindful of, and these 3-4 things helped me in my career, and they helped me in my entrepreneurial journey as well. So what I did was that I decided that my whatever skill set I'm acquiring has to be in my head, and I should take it home with me every day. So that's why I did not want to work in credit cards, for example, because to work in credit cards, you need a lot of machinery around you. And if you suddenly, get hit by a bus, the machinery doesn't even notice that you didn't come into work today. So the focus was on value adding to myself and value adding in a skill set which was essentially portable. So I was trying to get into either credit analysis or the trading floor or something like that. So effectively got out of the trading floor in 1993. And then stayed on it till 2013. So 20 years on various trading floors, whatever. But like I said, the one thing that I always was very conscious of is that whatever skill set that you are acquiring has to be portable, has to be applicable outside the set that you are working in, and has to have a market value. Because see, even when you work in a job, right? If they know that your market value is zero outside this infrastructure, then you know you will not really get paid well. But if they know that there is a bid for you out there, then even in bad years you get paid well. So uh, I always felt I got underpaid, but I mean that's just a matter of opinion. The sort of the point I'm trying to make is that um, uh, focus on adding a skill set, a hard skill set, which is monetizable. And as long as you're doing that, I believe luck is statistical. So you know, some days you get lucky, some days you don't, and it kind of averages out over a period of time. So you will, in your life, working life for 30, 40 years, you will get a few lucky breaks. You'll get a few bad ones as well. So that is a guarantee. The issue is, do you have the skill set? Do you have the marketability? Do you have the you know, whatever it takes to take it there? And that is kind of what brought me into the entrepreneurial journey as well, because I understood markets quite well. I understood investor psyche quite well. I understood what investors are trying to do quite well. And that's what translated into what became Canopy. So in my case, um, I'm highly confident that if I had become an entrepreneur, you know, when I was at your stage in life, which is sort of getting out of college, I would have failed miserably, because I mean, I didn't have a hard skill set. I didn't know how to deal with people, etc., etc. But then over a sort of banking career, managing teams, managing people, managing risk, you kind of added those skills, and then they came in quite handy. I mean. Um, so my philosophy has been that keep adding hard skills to your portfolio, and sooner or later they will monetize.
Sure. Actually, just to follow up on that, I'm glad that you mentioned that, a period of time when you were probably our age, you didn't really think of entrepreneurship. But I think compared to 1993 versus 2020, what do you think has been the biggest change in mindset across, say, the corporate world or even the startup industry as such?
Yeah, see, so obviously, first of all, it's become much more respectable to be an entrepreneur than it used to be. Um, I mean, uh, actually, when I was in IMA, there was a course on entrepreneurship. I didn't sign up for it. And a lot of people did, and quite a few of them did become entrepreneurs, and they're doing reasonably well. But the vast majority of them learned on somebody else's dime. So essentially, what I'm trying to say is that you think of your job as also a training school, right? It's an extension um, of your learning. And let's be honest, you will make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. I still make mistakes, right? So you will make mistakes, and it's better that you make mistakes on somebody else's money than to make it on your own money, right? So that was one thing. The other thing that I felt was quite important for me was that I had made my money, right? So when I quit banking in 2013, I actually retired. In fact, my Facebook status for a while was retired at 43. Then I was playing golf for a few months, and I got bored, and I started Canopy. So I started Canopy partly because I was investing my own money and I was getting frustrated with how things were. And I thought, if I have this problem, other people have this problem. But again, the idea was not that this is going to feed the family, right? I mean, the idea was, let's do something interesting.
Yeah.
So did I answer your question, or did I sidetrack it?
Yep, I think it pretty much answered the question I felt.
Yeah. So, Tanmay, to follow up, so,
Mm,
as you said that you were like in the beginning, you were never, set to become an entrepreneur, but,
mm,
over time,
mhm,
you got an idea
mhm,
for after your job experience.
mhm.
I'd like to know, what the transition, between, your corporate world and, the startup world, what's kind of the difference in mindsets, because as you mentioned about like playing with someone, like there is a difference between playing with your own money rather than someone else's money. So, what's the, the change in the
So,
mindset?
see, let's put a framework around this, right? Um, every company who is successful has been successful because they were doing something that was of value, and nobody else was doing, right? It's not really important whether the founder is, a fresh grad, a post grad, or a 50-year-old guy or 80-year-old guy. How does it matter, right? So as long as you are adding value, you will these companies will do well. And if you're not adding value, then you'll fold up, right? Now, what happens is that, and there is some research on this as well, which says that there are, the probability of success increases if you're starting at around 40, early 40s. Because you've spent 20 plus years working, you have a bunch of experience in some things, and you have some hard skills. So that's one way of doing it. The other end of the spectrum is that I'm out of school. I don't have really, I don't have a family to feed. I don't have, I don't. So you can take massive risk at that time.
Yeah.
Which somebody at my stage, when I had two kids on their way to college, you have wife, and then so you also have some bottom line obligations that you need to meet every month. So that's also there. So what I'm trying to say is that the one thing that you have to think about when you start your entrepreneurial journey is, what am I doing which nobody else is doing, and does it have value? The So that's one. The second thing is that whatever you think you know about the market, or whatever you think that you know about the situation, is wrong. It's not completely wrong, but it is at least 20-30% wrong. Because what happens is, we project ourselves into the market. So I mean, let's take an example, right? You want to start a bubble tea delivery service.
Okay.
Just
Very
take an
popular in Singapore.
right? You love bubble tea, and you think, I would love to have a delivery service, and therefore, let me start a bubble tea delivery service. So you get the logo, website, yada yada yada. The whole thing is happening, right?
Yeah.
Now, but what you have done is, your survey has been essentially you and your friends, and that instinct that you have has come from uh, your view of the market. And I'm not saying your view of the market is wrong. I'm saying it's your view of the market, which is different from other people's view of the market, which is why I'm saying that you're about 80% right and about 20-30% wrong. And that's the thing. So now I'm getting a question, which is that what changes when you go from a corporate job to entrepreneurship? Uh, in a corporate job, the systems and processes are very well established, right? So it's quite clear what your corporate does, right? I mean, if you're working in Goodyear tires, it's very clear that you're making tires, right? If you're working in a bank, you're in this department, you're doing this. It's very kind of clear that what you are trying to do. And there is also a process in place saying that if you want to do this, this is how it go about it, etc., etc., etc. And yes, there is scope for innovation as well, but broadly, you're sitting in a bank, and you won't suddenly think of it one day, you know what, let me sell soap. I mean, you won't. Or let me start this bubble tea delivery service. No, you won't. So and what happens is, because the corporate has been around for some time, it's making money, and therefore whatever it does is of value, and it's proven to be of value, and kind of the money flows in. So essentially, you can think of as a corporate as an entrepreneur who solved it, who solved the problem, or solved a problem, and maybe somebody solved it 50 years ago, or in the case of Deutsche Bank, 200 years ago, but that's basically what it was. Now, when you come into and start something which is of your own, you're by definition looking for something that nobody else is doing. So that adds a lot to the uncertainty about whether what you're doing is correct or not. The second thing that it adds a lot, there is no systems, there's no process, there's no procedure, there's nothing in place, right? So the whole infrastructure around you, which when you were in the corporate, you were thinking, such a waste of time. When you come out, you realize that, it had some value, right? At least, there were people who were paid to do some work, and they were adding some value to the process. So what changes majorly is that you are now trying to guess what can I do and what will be the long-term implication of this decision, um, and um, and that is something that how shall I say, uh, when you're working in a corporate, you know that any decision you take will most likely not blow up everything.
Yeah.
When you're working in yourself, every decision you take has a potential of blowing it up. So what I had a philosophy, which was that does not mean we will not take decisions, but yes, we will keep this at the back of our mind that this could go wrong, and as soon as it looks like it goes wrong, we retreat, we come back and go somewhere else, right? So um, we are not going to operate like the army, saying you've taken the decision and for good or bad we're going in. So you kind of hopefully do some strategic retreats
Prepare for the worst scenario.
when required. So essentially, biggest difference from corporate to entrepreneurship, the buck stops with you. There is no office politics, or at least not with you. I mean, in Canopy, there is no politics with me because I'm the there is lots of politics below me, and I have to, sometimes like little kids, I have to like pick them up and sort of this, but not at your level. You don't have to carry others' weight. So when I was trying to do something in the bank, you have to sort of convince the compliance guy, and you have to convince the market risk guy, and all that. All that nonsense you don't have to do. But then you're also responsible of meeting payroll every month, right? So kind of. So it's a huge blast, but it's also a lot of uncertainty.
Yep. Actually, that's a pretty insightful point that you mentioned about both sides of the story. And because you've experienced both sides of the story, if if you were at our age and if you had to choose between a high-paying corporate job that you so easily get addicted to, compared to actually grinding out there and starting afresh, what would you choose if you were given the choice as such?
See, I am quite materialistic when these things comes to these things, right? So I look at, I essentially do a discounted cash flow. Are you guys learning discounted cash flows?
Yeah.
Yep, we
Yeah.
figured that out on
We
our
took some
own.
finance courses.
Initially,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Fine. So basically, do a DCF on your life, right? So the objective that I had set for myself was, um, I will not, I will not bribe anyone or cheat or do anything illegal. Um, so so I will not do that. But outside that, every decision that I want to take has to maximize the present value, the DCF of my future cash flows, and reduce the uncertainty.
Yeah.
So, so I'm now answering your question, right? Your objective, see, depends on what you define as your objective in life, right? Now, it's not for me to decide what is your objective in life. It's kind of, I don't know if you saw the movie Matrix, but there's a dialogue in it which says, "I'm going to show you the door, but you're the one who has to walk through," right? So,
Yes.
so I'm not saying that. All I'm trying to say is you have to decide what your objective is. I had decided my objective was to maximize the present value of future cash flows and minimize the volatility of those future cash flows. That was a pure mathematical decision, right? And I kind of kept at it, and that's why I went into the trading floor, and then the part of the trading floor I went into, and then stuck to that. I kind of followed that principle, and I did quite okay, in the sense I was calculating my first job out of campus. Uh, um, I mean, it was a ridiculous amount of money, a ridiculously low amount of money that you got those days to start with. But I remember thinking to myself at some point in my career that uh, I'm making my annual salary, starting salary every few minutes or every few. So it's that order of magnitude that the payoffs happen, right? So now my question to you, Sarvesh, is that I give you two choices. I'm not saying don't start now. I'm saying you decide what you want and do what you want. What I'm trying to say is that um, uh, you start in 10 years, 15 years, where you've kind of made your money, you've picked up some hard skills. One hard skill that you need is dealing with people, managing teams, motivating people, right? Getting people to come to work, putting in that extra bit, whatever. So another hard skill you need is reading customers. In a conversation, you should have a bullshitter meter on, is this guy, for real? Is he wasting my time? Whatever. So I am now asking you for a risk return analysis, which is that you can start it now or you can start it in 15, 20 years. And you will have some money in the bank. You will have some experience to go with. And you will have picked a special skill set. Like, for example, you could know the inside out about the nuts that go into a tire. Let's say, I'm just taking a stupid example, but you know that there is this arbitrage where whoever gets this blah 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 right, there is the market, this is where I'll sell, this is where I buy, and I'm done, right? So what I am essentially trying to say is, if you know what you're going to do today and you're convinced that this is it and I have the skill set and I want to do it, uh, do it. But don't do it simply because it's fashionable to do it, or simply because that's what Mark Zuckerberg did. I mean, also what you have to realize, and I think this is one of the questions you sent me, is statistically speaking, all actors are waiters, right? The Tom Cruises of the world are statistical anomalies. So Mark Zuckerberg is also a statistical anomaly. So Mark Zuckerberg became Mark Zuckerberg not because he was a Harvard dropout. He became Mark Zuckerberg because he built something that people wanted, right? So that's kind of what I'm trying to say. So be an entrepreneur because you're building something that people want. Absolutely, and then there's no time like today and do it and start it. But if you haven't figured that out, but you say no, I want to be an entrepreneur because I don't want to work for anybody else. You know what? I think you're screwing up your risk return completely. So, and there is data on this. There is data that the percentage of success for an entrepreneur when he starts in the 40s is much higher than. And I've seen, I mean, I can bore you to death with data on this, but that's kind of what I'm trying to say. So, if I was to summarize, the whole my knowledge of whatever I've learned so far is a single sentence, and that is that people for the most part will act rationally in their own self-interest. So people will buy a product not because Sarvesh is the I'm not singling you out. I'm just using you as a metaphor. I'm not saying that people will buy a product because Sarvesh made it. People will buy a product because a young entrepreneur made it. No, people will buy a product because it makes sense for them. Right. So that's the point. So at some point you will realize that at this point I have something that makes sense for people, and therefore I want it. Now that thing could come today, it could come tomorrow, it could come elsewhere, and so in a way you don't have to be under pressure saying that, oh, by accepting a corporate job I have failed. I don't think you failed. I think you're doing something smart. You're learning on somebody else's money. It's a I mean, here you pay fees, right? In NTU, there somebody else is paying you fees to teach you stuff. Now, as long as, okay, if they're teaching you paper pushing, then yes, you're wasting your time. I completely agree with you. But if you're learning something that has monetizable skill all day long, I'll do it.
Absolutely. I think that's a great example, great analogy that you gave. Finance for life. I think we should start a new, course, Finance for Life. So, taking the conversation forward, since we mentioned about, challenges and failures at the beginning of this talk, Tanmay, because, we have one more question also, from one of our participant, which talks about challenges. So maybe I can put it this way, that since starting like Canopy, like what was I'll not say failures, but major obstacles that you faced, and your mindset, to overcome those.
Um, the See, you face obstacles every day,
Yeah.
and something or the other keeps going wrong. Um, and I'm highly confident even Warren Buffett faces obstacles every day, right? So it's that's a fact of life. It will happen, and you kind of keep at it. So uh, yes. Becoming an entrepreneur is an irrational act. It's a completely statistically stupid thing to do.
Yeah.
So uh, you have to be somewhat loony to do it. So so what I'm trying to say is that if you're an entrepreneur, you're somewhat loony to begin with. So these challenges won't phase you, right? So something will go wrong. Somebody messed up. Servers crashed. Customers ran away. You didn't understand the product. It blew up you blew up on the middle of a demo on a stage. All those are funny things will happen with you. But that should not phase you, because you're an entrepreneur and you are what shall I say? You just uh, keep looking beyond it, right? You say this is my focus and that's where I'm going, and these things will come and they will go. So I shouldn't be worried about it, or I shouldn't be unnecessarily and kind of making noise about it. So the um, uh, challenges will come. You think of them as, my customer is a rational person. What will a rational person do?
Mm-hmm.
And think about it, and you will find the answer, and you will implement it, and you will figure out that that was the right thing to do. So it's as simple, as straightforward as that. If in fact there are some days when things are going a bit slow and there are nothing going wrong, and I feel a little bored because maybe what am I doing here? It's hard to single out a challenge. You just get all over the place. And you try and work your way kind of through it. Going back to the risk return point and becoming an entrepreneur point, the guys who started Y Combinator, and I'm forgetting which one of them.
Michael, I guess Michael Seppel.
At one of those, he in his blog post had done um, a success failure analysis. And when you're doing a startup, there is a point in a startup's life where the risk return is optimal, and that optimal risk return is not at the start, and it's not at the end, obviously, but it's around Series A. So essentially, what I'm also trying to say is that it's not just that I want to become an entrepreneur or want to go join a corporate. I'm saying there is a Goldilocks in the middle as well, which is you join a startup that is around Series A. What that means is that they have been around for a couple of years. They've survived. They've managed to raise seed funding. They've managed to raise Series A, which means people believe in them enough, which means that they are able to produce customers. They're able to produce, products and all the revenue and all that. But it is still enough of a startup for you to sort of enjoy the ride. So you could also do that, and that is also a training school. I'm not saying that you will become mega super rich. A friend of mine actually just did this a few years ago. And he joined a startup around Series A, and in fact, I remember him coming to my office, and we had this long strategy session, and I told him the same thing, that join something which is around Series A, and he looked around, found somebody he liked, joined, and had it not been for this stupid virus, he would have cracked it. They were like about to do a mega round, and he was doing really well. Now, of course, things have gone somewhat of a south, and he is now cashing out. He still made money, but not crazy money. But he's made money. And I asked him, so are you going back to banking? And he said, no, no, I'm going again into a startup. So, so the point I'm trying to make is that it entrepreneurship does not mean that you have to start something new. Entrepreneurship also means that join something that is about to take off and learn on their money, right? Again, why do you want to learn on your own money? Unless, of course, you have that idea which is keeping you awake at night, and you need to do it, then absolutely you should.
Yeah.
So, did I answer your question, or I went round and round?
Absolutely, sir.
Okay.
Just to add on to it, I felt that what was like just getting more specific into Canopy, I wanted to know what was your thought process when you were starting it, considering how vast the fintech industry is. Like what was your initial phase of starting Canopy, and then how did you scale it up?
Now let me tell you the dirty story of all of this, right? So when you are doing a startup which requires a lot of money, then you're not the entrepreneur, you are an underpaid employee. And let me explain what I mean by that. Have you heard of Redmart?
Yep.
Yeah. Do you know Redmart was valued at $1 billion at one point?
$1 billion.
Yes. Do you know that the team made an exit and they sold it to Lazada? You know that, right? Do you know how much the founders made in Redmart when they sold it to Lazada? Take a guess. This is a company that was $1 billion valuation at one point. Take a guess.
Few hundred millions?
Nope.
Not even a few hundred million.
Lower.
No. 50.
25 million?
Lower.
I don't Google service.
No, they made zero.
Zero.
Oh.
And why did they make zero? Because of something known as liquidity preference. This is what I'm trying to tell you now is the dirty secret of entrepreneurship. So what happens is that, have you heard of liquidity preference?
No,
Not too short of that.
So what happens is that typically you have a seed round, then series A, then series A2, A3, B, C, D, E, whatever, right? Typically what is done is that every series of financing in a startup imposes a liquidity preference condition in the funding document. What that means is that if the company gets sold at a high price, then of course all share classes are equal. But if it gets sold in a distress, then the guy who came in last gets paid first. Then if now those guys are completely paid first, then those second last guys get paid, then
the
those
founders,
guys like right? So this is known as liquidity preference. What it means is that if your company gets liquidated, then I have preference on the cash. Okay, so Lazada had done 5-6 rounds, and and then because it's a massively cash burning business, you're forced to raise more and more money, and the founders and the employees are lower and lower in the totem pole, right? So then one day the market turned south, investors stopped giving more money. Amazon said, I'm coming into Singapore. Panic all around, and they had to essentially do a fire sale to Lazada, and Lazada paid them, I forget, 50 million, 60 million for the company.
Entire company.
And that 50-60 million was enough only to pay the last round. So the last round got money back. Everybody else, and founders were 6th or 7th in line, got zero. So to answer your question, what made me decide about whatever. So what I decided is I'm not getting into payments. And the reason I'm not getting into payments is a massive retail issue, which means you have to raise millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars, which means you are way behind in the queue on getting paid out. So you have to have the perfect storm, and you'll make a lot of money. But if you don't have the perfect storm, then you might lose out, right? So so that was one very key consideration for me, which was that I wanted to be a substantial financial investor in my own company. And I did. I mean, this is public information, but I put in the first $1 million myself. Um, and the biggest pop that happened in the stock price happened between seed and Series A. And the guy who made the most money was me. So essentially what I'm trying to say is that we as a company have very methodically so far refused to give liquidity preference. All shares that we have raised are all pari passu or equal rights to everybody else. But all the seed money came from me. And I realized that the biggest financial pop happens between seed and Series A. So essentially, if you kind of look at my framework of how to go about it, one was you have to have a hard skill set. Second, you have to have some money in the bank so that you're not worried about feeding the family. Then the third is you don't want to give liquidity preference. And the fourth is you want to get into a business that is not a cash guzzler, because if it is a cash guzzler, you have no choice but to keep raising, and keep going lower. Now you could luck out and you could become the Grab or the Tokopedia, or you could be the guys you haven't heard of. So that's kind of my thought. So see, the world is not hanging around waiting to give you money. The world is not saying that Siddharth is a nice guy and therefore he deserves to be this billionaire, so let's make him rich. No, not at all. Every human being in the world is trying to make themselves rich.
Yeah.
So it's a hard job to begin with, and you need luck, you need a lot of thinking, strategy behind it, etc., etc. But one thing that I wanted to kind of say was that my idea was to make myself rich. I didn't want to make other people rich. So why should I make my VC rich? I should make myself rich, right? Because you're going to work like a dog anyway. And therefore you might as well try and, that doesn't mean you will succeed, but at least the odds are in your favor.
Yeah.
So that's also what I'm, so you make my trip, right? The Deep Kalra was a year senior to me in college. I think he's made 15-20 million.
15-20 million.
That's it. What I'm trying to say is it's $1 billion company.
Yeah, like Make My Trip is very popular.
And you made 15-20 million. I mean, it's not a small amount of money, but essentially what I'm trying to say is this is the equivalent of guy has hit the bloody ball, not just out of the park, he's hit it out of the district. And still.
Yeah, I think we will definitely take a note of this. We'll research more on the liquidity preferences, I would say.
Yeah, and when you go to fundraise, you'll be told this is standard. And to be honest, it is standard, but it's standard against you. So it's for you to kind of resist and say, I am not doing this. So that's kind of.
Yeah, it was quite insightful, Tanmai. We have one more question from the audience. Yash is asking us, hello, Mr. Tanmai. I would like to ask you, did you ever thought that when you were building your business, Canopy, will it not work or will it fail? Or did anyone tell you this, that it will not work? And did you ever think to shut it down? Yeah.
See, people typically are, I mean, especially if you have white hair like me, people don't tell you these things to your face. Typically, they're kind of kind to you. But yes, there is a vast majority of people who we pitched to for investing and did not invest. So essentially, they told you no without saying the word no, right? So so yes, there is a lot of people who are but that's okay. People will disagree. If you go into a meeting and everybody agrees with you, then something is wrong, as in something seriously wrong. So if what you were trying to do was so comfortable and everybody agreed with you, then most probably you're too late. Let's say you start an e-commerce fashion website today, right? Everybody say, yeah, good, e-commerce is hot, man, do it, yes, let's do it. It's actually too late.
Yep.
So what I'm trying to say is that yes, people will disagree with you, and you have to expect people to disagree with you. You have to have a very clear thought process in your head saying, what value do I add, and why should people buy my product? And you have to be convinced that your value add is correct, and that's the framework you are working on. And as more information keeps coming in, you have to keep modifying your framework. I mean, I started out trying to be a discount broker. And now I'm doing data. I'm dealing after the same product, same everything, but still my focus has changed. So, and this ties in with what I told you initially, is that your understanding of the market is your experience into the market. As you meet reality, then more information will come in. You have to kind of change your thought process as more information comes in. But at the same time, people will say no. I luckily never actually had to think of shutting down. I had, of course, game plans, in the sense that if this happens, if I run out of money, what will I do, and et cetera, et cetera. And yes, there were sleepless nights a little bit here and there, but nothing like what you see in the movies, man. I mean,
over exaggerated.
Actually, yep. Like it's actually great that you are touching on all these points. I think one point that we would love to hear from you would be on how do you like manage the leadership aspect of entrepreneurship in terms of being a founder, managing human capital, building an organization from scratch and then scaling that up, like the entire leadership aspect towards entrepreneurship.
So see, because I came, having 20 years worked in banking, and having managed teams and having managed people, so I was already doing it, right? I was a managing director. I was managing a team. And you've seen it all, right? You've seen people, fighting. You've seen people demotivated. You've motivated people. You've fired people. You've hired people. You've done everything, right? So I was lucky that I had come in with that skill set, and unfortunately, little bit this skill set, you only learn it by doing it. So and it kind of again boils down to me sounding like a parrot, but I'm saying learn on somebody else's money, right? So learn how to manage people. It's a very highly important thing. So there are 3, 4, 5 things that you need to do when you're managing people. One is, and I think that's the most important, you have to be predictable as a person. So what I mean to say is that your employees should know before asking you the question, saying, I'm going to Tanmay with this situation and these are the alternatives. They know that what you will do. And you have to see, not by being predictable. I'm not saying boring or whatever, but essentially what I'm trying to say is that you have to be very consistent in your approach. Otherwise, you confuse the shit out of everybody else. So therefore, you have to make decisions. You have to make decisions rationally. The rationale for the decision has to be explained clearly. Any dissent has to be welcomed and answered. Because see, finally, especially see in a bank, right? You're paying people absurd money. So you can actually afford to treat them like crap and they'll stick around. In a startup, that doesn't happen, right? You're paying them peanuts because you only have peanuts. So, and they are sticking around because they believe in you and they believe in your vision, right? So, so you have to first have the freaking vision. Second, you have to communicate it. And third, you have to be very methodical and rational and, predictable. So every good boss that I worked with had this strategy that they will always decide in a very methodical way, and how they went about deciding it is a very public process. They say, I looked at this, I looked at this, I looked at this, this doesn't make sense, blah, blah, blah. I did this, right? It's a very methodically defined, in fact, sometimes well documented on email process that I thought this, that, da, 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 therefore we are doing this. The second thing is, F-ups will happen. I mean, it's a technical term, but, F-ups will happen. You have to be willing to own up. So if you took a decision that, with that amount of information would seemed like the right thing to do at that time, but turned out that wasn't the right thing to do, you should be the first person who raises your hand and saying, guys, I think that wasn't the smart thing to do. Let's go back and do this. What will happen is people will believe in you more. Because see, as long as the soldier knows what the journal is doing and why the journal is doing, the soldier is kind of motivated to work harder. So that was my my way of managing people. I've had the good fortune of working with some really good managers, and I kind of learned from them. And this is not the only way of doing it, but the way I look at it is that when you're in a startup, you are essentially, I think of it, you're in a lifeboat and you're trying to sort of find the way to the shore, right? So you are in that lifeboat and you're trying to find the way. Everybody on the lifeboat gets a vote. So the one philosophy we have in the company is everybody gets a vote. And it doesn't matter if it's not your department, right? So the operations guy can have an opinion on technology and make it very obvious that this is my opinion on technology. Anybody can ask anybody a question, and anybody can ask me a question about anything, anytime, because otherwise it doesn't make sense, right? So because I want people to stick around. So if I want people to stick around, I should be willing to answer a question about why we are doing X, Y, Z. Because there better be a rational answer about why we are doing it, right? So, like we went into Europe. Why did we go into Europe? Why did we not go into Korea, for example, right? So there should be a clear answer. So approachable, predictable, explaining your decisions, being very consistent, being respectful of people. I think, I mean, these are qualities that I've seen in every good manager that I've worked with, and I've seen them missing in every bad manager I've worked with. So that was kind of my philosophy. But don't underestimate the learning that you get from managing people. It's a very, very important life skill.
Yeah, absolutely agreed with it. We have a few more questions, on the floor. So Aditya is asking.
I have a hard stop at 9:30, but I have 8 more minutes.
Okay, yeah, we'll try to wind up as soon as possible. So maybe a couple of more questions. So how do you see the growth for Canopy in the next 5 years, with a lot of major players entering the fintech market, like C Money, Grab, Singtel, IBM?
No, yeah, I mean, see again, these are all big names, but they're doing something else. So don't worry. And like take Grab, for example, right? You're in the taxi business, they're still losing money.
Right? Yeah, they're not profitable.
They're not profitable. They just increase prices. They're trying to merge with Gojek. So, so the founder of Grab, I don't remember his name, but hasn't cashed out yet. So I think Grab is now beyond the point where it can actually blow up. So he's safe, as in he will cash out serious money. But I'm not worried about Grab because I'm in a different business, which Grab doesn't quite understand and Grab doesn't want to get into. And that's fine. When you take a Grab taxi, you pay $5, $10, $15, right, per ride. My customer on average is paying me 20,000 US per annum. So, we're offering a very complex set of analysis and things like that. So we are very, very aware of people who are in that space. We are also very aware of what's our plus and what's our minus. So we know which ones will win, which we know which ones we will lose. And part of me thinks that if these big guys, actually none of the ones you mentioned are actually going to buy Canopy, but a couple of big ones might come in and buy me out, right? So then I'll become a faculty in your college.
Would love to.
Just to elaborate on that, probably like one of the last few questions, what do you think is the next biggest trend in the fintech industry, and what's your general perception of the same?
It's quite interesting you say that, because there is this fintech chat, Singapore fintech WhatsApp group, which is full of founders and regulators and VCs and like that. Varun Mittal of EY, he runs it. So they were asking this question just today morning, and everybody was giving their opinion. So people are very bearish neobanks. People are bullish payment networks. People are saying that at least one ATM manufacturer will go bust because people are not using cash now, right? And my prediction was about data, about data aggregation. So it's hard to say, right? See, the biggest problem in entrepreneurship is that you need about 3-4 years to get to a point where somebody will acquire you. And what is going to be hot in 3-4 years, you have no friggin' clue. Like right now, the hottest thing today is buy now, pay later. BNPL, right? BNPL, yeah. So it's massive, very huge. And was it the hugest thing a year ago? No. Is it going to be the hugest thing a year from now? No. So it's like fashion, right? I mean, it comes and goes and whatever. So whatever you try and do, you have to be convinced about it enough that you will be able to stick with it for 3-4 years before somebody comes and buys you out. So so that's another thing that you have to be. So yes, it does require some crystal ball gazing and whatever. But the way I looked at it is, I mean, look at it in dollars and cents. If whatever you're doing, somebody is actually willing to pay you money for it, then that's something you want to do. It also depends on which geography you start your company, because the population size in Singapore is limited. So a lot of these strategies won't work as well here as they would, let's say, in Indonesia or India or even the US, right? So and let's say you decide to launch your startup in the US. One, I would highly recommend it because it's a big market. Second is, you don't need to be there. So you don't need to worry about a work visa, work permit. I mean, in the day of Zoom, you could be sitting in Timbuktu, right? So, so essentially, what I'm trying to say is, where you physically are and where your company is don't need to be the same thing. And therefore, this decision about where you want to start your company can be made very rationally and thought through. And I know people who European people who quit everything and went into Vietnam because they saw the opportunity set, and it worked for them. So totally.
Yep. Just probably the last question to finish things off. It's been a pleasure to have you, and you've literally traveled the world. You worked in banks. You have a pretty awesome fintech startup running. What's the best advice that you can give to our students waiting to get out into the job market?
See, like I said, right, the world doesn't owe you anything. People will act rationally in their own self-interest. So maximize the present value of your future cash flows, minimize the volatility of that cash flow, add hard skills. Add hard skills will always pay off somewhere or the other, right? And add hard skills, especially those that have value outside the company you're in. Learn on other people's money, make mistakes on other people's money, When we've come to a point and you're convinced that I am now convinced that I have this idea that works, at that point you should start the journey. It shouldn't be that I've finished my college and therefore I should become an entrepreneur. That's completely stupid. You should become an entrepreneur when you feel that at this point the world owes it to you, as in your idea is so good, and then it will actually make money, that you should start it. But it could be 2 years from now, it could be 5 years, it could be tomorrow, it could be 20 years from now. How does it matter?
Yeah, absolutely. Completely, agree with your points. And it was, great having you here, Tanmai.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, for answering all our
No
questions.
issues. No issues.
Yeah.
Great to be here, and all the best. And if you guys have any other questions and want me to drone on about something, just drop me a line.
Sure,
Yep,
sure.
we will be
We'll stay
sure
in
to be in
touch.
touch with you.
Thank
Yep.
you. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
Tanmay.
so much.
Thank you.